Hey there, friends. Have you ever imagined having the power to separate your soul from your body, letting it fight for you while you watch from a safe distance? What if, on top of that, you couldn't die? Not unless your body completely disintegrated. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's the reality for a group of people known as demi-humans. But here's where things get dark. When the government starts experimenting on these demi-humans, things take a terrifying turn. The experiments don't just give them power. They start to strip away their humanity. What happens next is a story of betrayal, survival, and the fight to hold on to what's left of their very souls. This, my friends, is the chilling world of Ajin, demi-humans, a Japanese film that dives deep into what happens when immortality comes with a cost. Let's jump in and explore the twisted and thrilling journey that lies ahead. You're tuned into ECR Entertainment Cinema Recap, so let's get started. It all begins in a dark, cold lab, a place where humanity and science cross dangerous lines. Here, we meet our hero, trapped in a nightmare. His body is tied down, surrounded by cold clinical tape. The air is thick with tension as a team of doctors, led by a ruthless scientist, perform cruel and inhumane experiments. They cut, slice, and tear at his limbs, while the scientist gives cold, calculated orders. And then, something horrifying happens. The scientist, seeing no further use, tells the doctors to end it. But just when it seems like it's over, our hero, he doesn't die. Instead, his body regenerates, healing itself faster than humanly possible. This is no ordinary man. He's a demi-human. But this is just the beginning of a nightmare that he can't escape. The experiments continue, relentless and unyielding, as the scientists probe deeper into his unnatural ability to heal. What they don't know is that this power is far darker than they realize. We flash back to the moment everything changed. The hero, an ordinary man, is walking down the street when disaster strikes. A truck slams into him, sending him flying into the road. As bystanders rush to help, ready to call for an ambulance, something strange happens. His body heals itself. In mere seconds, the truck's impact is nothing more than a distant memory. It's in that moment that he realizes the horrifying truth. He's no longer human. He's a demi-human, and nothing will ever be the same. As news outlets report the incident, the city is thrown into chaos. The government is on high alert. 3 demi-humans have now been spotted. The public is terrified, and soon, the government has taken control, seizing our hero for their own twisted experiments, trying to unlock the secrets behind his unnatural immortality. Just as the scientist prepares to leave for an important meeting, things take a turn for the worse. The lab, a place of cold, twisted experiments, suddenly shakes with a deafening roar. Boom! 2 figures smash their way in, launching a rocket that shatters the walls, and chaos erupts. These aren't ordinary intruders. These are demi-humans, and they've come to put an end to the nightmare. Armed with deadly precision, they cut through the lab's security like a hot knife through butter, gunning down everyone in their path. The scientist watches in shock as the destruction unfolds. But in the middle of the chaos, something catches his eye: the security cameras. One of the last things he sees before all hell breaks loose is a warning. Demi-humans are not just lab rats, they are humans too. It's a revelation that hits him like a punch to the gut. These experiments, the ones he's been running, are far more dangerous than he ever imagined. These aren't just test subjects. These are people with minds, souls, and a thirst for freedom. With the lab crumbling around him, the scientist knows he's running out of time. He can't let the demi-humans escape. His next order is clear: stop them at all costs. He turns to his security team, instructing them to take out the invaders using specialized weapons. These aren't your average guns. These are designed to neutralize the unkillable. However, these 2 intruders defeat all of the security guards that arrived at the lab where our hero was imprisoned, and they rescue him. He adds that they were both demi-humans, and he hands the hero the gun to murder them. But the hero is hesitant to kill humanity, and we now know that the 2 invaders are villains. The villain swings his rifle toward the physicians, but the hero kills him to save them. To regain consciousness, the frustrated villain shoots himself. This hero and the doctors want to hide from him. The resurrected evil entered and warned them to stand in front of him. At that point, he noticed the hero's hand and approached. Suddenly, the hero charged at him from behind with a knife. Our hero had constructed a trap to distract him. But the villain is stronger than he realizes, so he murders himself to stay alive and continues to shoot him. Following that, The hero and doctors fled, but the villain reappeared and shot them. The villain grins as his demigod towers over the hero. This is the power of a demigod. The hero's eyes widen with realization. Every demi-human has their own demigod. He quickly raises a glowing pendant. Then I'll release mine. The ground trembles as the hero's demigod bursts forth, a force of light and energy. The two demigods clash. The villain laughs, but the hero stands firm. You think this changes anything? The villain taunts. The hero fights back, struggling to control his demigod. For everyone you've hurt, I'll stop you. With one final push, the hero's demigod overpowers the villain's. The villain stumbles back, growling. This isn't over. He warns. You can't run from this, the villain sneers. The hero, wounded but determined, jumps off a building and narrowly escapes, vanishing into the shadows. The villain's voice echoes in the distance. This isn't over. Meanwhile, news stations broadcast the attack on the lab, covering the hero's escape. The hero's sister watches in shock. Reporters swarm the lab, but then the villain and his companion, both disguised, step forward, ready to speak. One of the reporters looks at them with recognition. Wait, you two were the subjects of the experiments, weren't you? A cold, bitter laugh escapes the villain. You have no idea what they did to us. Electric shocks, endless death by every weapon they could think of, and even poisonous gas. We were nothing but lab rats. The reporters, stunned, try to process his words, but the villain continues. They thought they could break us, but they were wrong. We survived. And now the world will see the truth. The villain reveals a website where videos of the horrific experiments are posted, showing the world the government's inhumanity. We can die, but the pain we endure? That's the real weapon. He looks directly into the cameras. We're not monsters. We only want one thing, a place to live, away from all the hate. The message spreads, quickly gaining global support. The government and the scientists are exposed for their cruelty. People rally behind the villain's cause, while the scientists and officials face backlash online and in the media. Elsewhere, the hero stumbles out of the woods, his clothes torn and his body bruised. An elderly woman spots him and asks, "Did you get in a fight with dogs?" He doesn't answer, lost in his thoughts. She leads him to her house, where she gives him food and fresh clothes. "You're not the first to come here like this," she says. "I run an orphanage. The kids, they don't ask questions, they just need someone to care for them." The hero notices the children, their faces full of hope despite everything. For the first time in a while, he allows himself to relax, grateful for the stranger's kindness. Back at the hospital, the hero's sister sits anxiously by his empty bed. She's the only one who knows his secret. Just then, the scientist's assistant approaches, eyes filled with suspicion. "Where's your brother?" she asks. "You're hiding something?" Before the sister can respond, the assistant suddenly starts floating off the ground. She gasps in shock as the assistant is stabbed, though the sister can't see who did it. It's the villain's companion, using his demigod's power to remain invisible to normal humans. The assistant falls, apparently dead, but moments later her eyes snap open. She's alive, no, more than alive. She's a demi-human too. "Did you really think I was just a regular scientist?" The assistant sneers, summoning her own demigod. The two demigods clash, sending shockwaves through the hospital. The building shakes, lights flicker, and the fight escalates quickly. Meanwhile, the hero's sister is thrown out of the room during the battle, but she's saved by hospital staff. The villain's friend watches the fight, realizing the presence of so many people means he can't just kill without consequences. He hesitates, unsure of what to do next. The hero, lost in vivid dreams, relives everything before jolting awake, only to realize he's safe. Relieved, he turns his attention to helping the elderly woman beside him. As he does, the radio crackles to life, announcing that the hospital has been attacked. Panic sets in, and in a rush of desperation, the hero sneaks up to the hospital terrace to meet his sister. There, he confides in her, recounting the chaos he's experienced. Frustration bubbles up, but his sister, ever calm, soothes him, offering both comfort and understanding. Before they part, he gives her the grandmother's address, urging her to come there before anything goes wrong. In the next scene, the villain sends a video recording, revealing that he had requested shelter for demigods 5 days ago, but received no response from the government. As a result, he sets a date and time to attack the lab, inviting demi-humans to join him. The threat is clear. Upon watching this, the hero realizes an attack is imminent. His heart races, he knows he must act, so he begins training his demigods. Despite initial doubts, the demigods soon start making progress slowly but steadily. Meanwhile, the hero's sister and grandmother grow closer, and his sister is overjoyed. Finally, a bond she's been longing for. The day the villain had ominously predicted finally arrived. The media, reporters, and everyone else eagerly gathered outside the lab, waiting for something big to happen. Suddenly, without warning, a plane crashed directly into the facility, obliterating the building in mere seconds. From the swirling dust and debris, the villain emerged, as menacing as ever. True to his word, he had come to recruit for his army of demi-humans. Some, already swayed by his offer, joined his cause. Inside the lab, the scientist watched in horror as the destruction unfolded. Frantically, he instructed the police to fire at the villain nonstop, hoping to prevent him from regenerating. But the police were no match for the villain's sniper-wielding ally, perched in a nearby building, who picked them off one by one. With a ruthless smirk, the villain rose, grabbing a shotgun and mowing down the remaining officers without hesitation. He then turned on a live broadcast, his voice cold and menacing as he addressed the people of Tokyo. "I came seeking a place to live," he said. "But since no one answered, I've decided to take Tokyo for myself. You have 20 days. If the government refuses, I will release a deadly poisonous gas across the entire city." As the villain's chilling declaration echoed across the nation, the camera cut to the hero watching the news in a quiet, dimly lit room. The neighbors, having noticed the hero's presence, gathered at an old woman's house. She, understanding the gravity of the situation, quietly ushered them out through the back door to safety. Meanwhile, the scientist held an emergency meeting with government officials. He called the villain directly, attempting to negotiate. The government, he explained, was willing to offer the villain a remote island far from Tokyo, where he and his demi-humans could live in peace. But the villain, distrustful of any offer from those who had betrayed him, scoffed at the proposal. "You think I'll just leave Tokyo?" he retorted. "I'm taking it, with or without your approval." The news spread like wildfire. Panic gripped the nation as people scrambled to flee the city, with some seeking refuge in underground bunkers. Supermarkets were stripped bare as terrified citizens stocked up on supplies, preparing for the worst. Back at the scientist's lab, the hero made a bold decision. He approached the scientist, offering to join the fight against the villain. In exchange, he demanded two things: a government job for his sister and permanent identities for both of them. The scientist, knowing they needed all the help they could get, agreed to the terms. The hero, scientist, and their team gathered in a hidden safe house, meticulously planning their next move. Their calculations were clear. The villain would inevitably target the poisonous gas production facility. It was the perfect location to make their stand. As the 20-day deadline approached, the villain's forces moved in. The villain's friend and his team infiltrated the facility, only to find themselves confused. There was no sign of the villain. They pressed forward, taking down the guards and making their way up to the building's upper floors, where the poisonous gas was stored. Meanwhile, the villain was far from the scene. Calmly and almost casually, he rode his bicycle toward a wood grinding factory, a single hand gripping the handlebars. His eerie calm contrasted with the chaos unfolding at the gas facility. Back at the plant, the villain's friend and his team gathered in a control room, preparing to seize the building. But the hero had already set his plan into motion. Using his demigod abilities, he released tiny particles into the ventilation system. These particles spread throughout the room, rendering the demi-humans invisible to the humans, but the humans were able to see the demi-humans. With the room now filled with confusion, the scientist team moved in, neutralizing the enemy one by one with a special gun that rendered them unconscious. But then came a twist. One of the bags being used to organize the demi-humans contained something unexpected: the villain's severed hand. In an instant, the hand dropped into a nearby wood grinder. But instead of being destroyed, the villain emerged from the bag, fully regenerated, and with a single gunshot, took down the nearest cop. It was revealed, as long as even the largest part of a demi-human's body remained intact, they could regenerate. The police tried to stop him using the special gun, but it was no use. The villain unleashed his demigod power, wiping out the cops in mere moments. The villain then woke his friend, and together, they moved to seize the poisonous gas. Just as the villain grabbed it, the hero sent his own demigod to intercept. An epic battle between the two demigods ensued, both fighting with brutal force. Meanwhile, the villain's friend sent his own demigod to kill the scientist. But just as the strike was about to land, the scientist's assistant intervened, sending her demigod to defend her. The scientist, shocked and confused, watched as her assistant, who she had trusted, revealed herself to be a demi-human. Villain's friend was about to shoot scientist again. Assistant stops that by taking bullet on her. After becoming alive, she attacks the villain's friend. Meanwhile, scientist makes him unconscious by injecting special injection. Back in the heart of the battle, the hero and villain were locked in a deadly struggle. The fight was a constant cycle of death and resurrection, with both sides regenerating over and over. At one point, the villain's demigod severed the hero's arm and threw it aside. Both combatants were weary, their bodies bruised and battered from the endless battle. Then, in a moment of desperation, the villain attempted to escape with the gas, but the hero seized the villain's arm, signaling his team. Without warning, a rapid response team descended, freezing both combatants with a specialized freezer gun. They then shot the villain and hero, reducing them to particles, which were swiftly sucked up by a vacuum cleaner. The villain and hero were dead, or so it seemed. In a twist of fate, the hero's body reassembled from the severed hand, coming back to life in an instant. The confused soldiers prepared to shoot again, but the scientist yelled for them to stop. With no time to spare, the hero broke through the building's walls, crashing down into the streets below. And just like that, the story came to an end. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the ride. Take care, and until next time, goodbye.